This is TWiT.
Frontier Foundation released a free plugin for Firefox and Chrome. It's called Privacy Badger, and it can block trackers and widgets that record what you do online. Larry Magid is a technology journalist and internet safety activist and joins us now. Welcome, Larry Magid, from your... We're inaugurating your new office setup.
My new office studio, so you can actually see in the back there's a tool bag in my bookcase because I'm doing things like screwing hooks on walls and getting things set up.
Just tell people you're a rocket surgeon. It's very impressive. So Larry, products like Disconnect, AdBlock Plus, and Ghostery exist. Why does the EFF feel the need to offer Privacy Badger?
Well, it didn't go into specifics, but they did say that none of these products are exactly what they want to see. They certainly paid homage to them and very respectful of these other products. But I think it's also getting it out there for free, getting out there with a nonprofit that's widely respected, that people trust. I mean, when I talked about this yesterday on a CBS segment, the anchor simply said, well, how do we know we can trust this? There are a lot of sleazy security apps out there. And of course, the answer is that EFF is a credible organization. So I think it just sort of adds to it. Also, the fact that it's free and well publicized and that it's simple. That's the other thing about it. You can configure it if you want to, but the defaults are very simple and pretty conservative in the sense that when you go to a site, if it has any kind of a adware/spyware on it, it won't block the site, it won't block the content, but it will block that element. And I have to confess that on larrysworld.com and safekids.com, two of my sites, I take Google ads. And I was very unhappy to find that when I went to my own site with Privacy Badger turned on, that needless to say, I got a couple of red flags there because of the Google ad. So I brought that up to the EFF guy, and he said, well, part of what we're trying to do is put pressure on web operators like you to come up with other ways to monetize. So now I have to start thinking about, do I really want to have a red badge, a negative red badge on my site because I'm doing business with an extremely reputable company, but one that does collect information?
Right. So is this in beta or is this an actual shipping solutions today? How much sure is this code?
Well, I can't tell you exactly how sure it is. I can tell you that it hasn't crashed my machine. It seems to work okay. I installed it on Chrome, and it seems to function. Apparently, there are some glitches when I talked again to the EFF. For example, I have a like button on one of my pages, and it probably should have blocked that or at least substituted out its own because like buttons, as you know, also send information up to Facebook. But they, in theory at least, are supposed to replace that like button with their own like button that only sends information if a person actually likes a page. But by default, according to the EFF guy, if the like button is simply there, then a visitor to the page, their information is being shared with Facebook.
Now, you mentioned that your site, because of the ad, the Google ads, throws up a flag in this plugin. What happens if somebody's using this? They go to your site. Is the advertising not registered? You don't get paid for whatever advertising. That's just doesn't happen.
That's right. I should be editorializing against this product, right? Yes, it will block that particular ad. Now, what the user can then go in and do, and of course I did this on my own site, is you can change it from red to yellow to green. Red means bad, we're going to block it. Yellow means we're not sure, we're not going to block it, but we're going to warn you. And green means it's no problem. And you can opt to make it green, which of course I did on my own site. But it's up to the user. But it is an issue, and I think it's also important that consumers understand that it isn't necessarily evil that their information is being shared. They simply need to be aware of it and decide whether they're comfortable with it. Personally, I have come to grips that I am okay with Google getting information about me. That doesn't mean I love the idea, but it also means that I live in a realistic world and I'm not going to block every site that has Google ads or even block all Google ads. But it's one of those things that I think people have a right to be aware of.
Hey, Larry, let me play devil's advocate, though.
Sure.
What company these days isn't trying to collect information about you out on the web? And is there a danger here that like every website's just going to show a bunch of red boxes with everything blocked going forward if this thing takes off?
I do think that's a danger, and I do think it requires a consciousness and an education effort on the part of all of us who talk publicly about privacy to get people to think about what they want and expect. I mean, I happen to believe, because like you guys, I make part of my living, actually most of my living, through free media, which is supported by advertising. So I don't have anything against advertising. I have something against surreptitious advertising. So when I listen to a TWiT show and I hear an ad, you know, it's pretty upfront that there's an ad. It's also pretty upfront that you guys are being paid for it or the network's being paid for it. I don't have a problem with that. It's the surreptitious trading of information that I think people need to be aware of and then decide whether they want it. And, you know, you guys have done it, right? You've gone out shopping for some kind of gadget. And for the next 2 weeks, every website you go to, or many of the sites you go to, have ads for that same type of gadget. Obviously, that's no coincidence. That's because of these third-party tracking cookies. Now, that doesn't bother me, but it's creepy, and you have a right to know it's there.
Now, Larry Magid, the chat room is loving what you're saying. 8-Bit Steve says you're spot on with everything you're saying. Web 3277 is asking you if it has any performance impact on Chrome.
Not that I have noticed, but I haven't metered it. I haven't done any kind of measurements, but if it does, it's certainly below my radar of measuring it on my system. And I've got a pretty fast cable modem, 50 megabits per second or so on average. So my guess is it's fairly marginal if it's there.
Well, it seems to me that the main purpose of this is to raise awareness, because it does a really great job of telling you how many flags it's throwing up on every given site. And I think the result is going to be that people go to websites and go, wow, what are you talking about? There are 9 things, and they can go in and say, oh, wow, that button is doing this, and that ad is doing that, and the site itself is doing something else. And that's a consciousness-raising exercise. And as they told you, Larry, it's also something that's raising a lot of awareness for people who have websites. And I think that's all good. And if that's the purpose, it seems to be both working, and it seems to be something that we should all get behind, because it's really good. That, you know, that's really the main thing, is that people know what's going on.
I've always thought of myself as a good citizen from a privacy perspective, but I have to admit I'm doing business with Google. I appreciate the revenue, but at the same time, I have to think about whether that's worth it, and it's causing me to have to rethink all that. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Larry Magid is at larrysworld.com, and you can find him on Twitter and follow him on Twitter at Larry Magid. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining us on Tech News Today.
Thanks so much.